Okay, when we talk about the impacts of energy use, you can talk in terms of, you can classify the impacts either by source, I mean the source of energy, whether it is fossil fuel, it is renewable, it is hydroelectricity, or you can classify them by pollutants, the pollution that caused by these different energy sources. And also we can classify the impact by scale. Some of the energy use have really large scale of impact that it requires a different discussion. Okay, by source, we look at the three most important dominant source of energy we have these days: oil, natural gas, and coal. Okay, these are, for example, these are fossil fuels. When we talk about oil, it is source of carbon dioxide. Of course, it can cause climate change, air pollution by vehicles, acid rain spills, rig accidents. Even though when we extract the oil at the sea, we have lots of incidents where oil rigs get damaged and crude oil pollute the oceans. And similarly with natural gas, you can have climate change from the greenhouse gases, methane leakage, methane explosions, rig accidents. And coal is another form of fossil fuel. It can, of course, create climate change, acid rain, environmental spoliation by open cast mining, land subsidence due to deep mining, spoil heaps, groundwater pollution, mine accidents, and health of miners. Then nuclear power, it also has some impacts. Radioactivity, misuse of fissile by rogues parties. Terrorists might want to hijack the raw material for the nuclear power and pose a threat to world peace. We have proliferation of nuclear weapons. A lot of countries, they say that they want to use this nuclear energy for good, for producing energy, but some of them, they secretly or openly use this for weaponizing their nation. Okay? And the residue from nuclear power station, there are lots of examples of this radioactive waste being deposed with no environmental consideration. Even those who are working in nuclear power, you have problems with health issues of uranium miners. Okay? Biomass, another form of renewable energy where you get energy from plants that you farm or from plantation. It has effect on landscape and biodiversity, groundwater pollution due to fertilizers, use of scarce water source, and competition in food production. Because when you plant these plants for energy, you are using the land instead of producing food, you are producing energy. So you need to, there will tend to be crisis whether you want to produce for food or you want to produce energy. Hydroelectricity is another renewable energy, but then when you want to have a sizable hydroelectric power station, then you are talking about flooding a huge part of your land to get the water reservoir up. So we're talking about displacement of populations. People have to move, you have to move entire villages, and animals have to move to other safe place. And this will affect on rivers and groundwater. And then the dams itself are visual intrusions. Some people don't like that. And it might have some seismic effects because you disturb the natural hydrology of the place. And then the downstream effect on agriculture. And of course, when you hold the water, then the water downstream, where people normally use water for agriculture, will be affected, right? And methane emission from submerged biomass. When you flood a forest, a big area of forest, all these plants will rot deep inside the lake, and it produces methane, even carbon monoxide. But because they are it is deep inside the lake, it is kept under pressure due to the weight of the water above it. But if you disturb this water, this gas will be released. There was a case in Africa many years back where a lake emit methane when there was a landslide that disturbed the lake, and all the methane that has been trapped inside the lake suddenly were released. Okay, and then wind power. You have a lot of wind turbine, the visual intrusion in sensitive landscapes. Some people don't like the shape and the structure being erected in lovely natural surrounding. You know? Then these wind turbines produce deep noise that are not favorable to the locals living around the area. And nature lovers also complain of a lot of birds died because they strike the blades in flight. And also people are complaining because of interference with communications due to the towers. You know, when you have a wind turbine farm, you have hundreds of these massive tall structures on the landscape. So this tends to produce disruption with communications. Then we have tidal power. We will look at all these renewable form of energy later on. But now just to have an idea of what kind of impact this would have. Okay, so tidal power, you will have structures and machines being put on the coast of a country, and this cause visual intrusion and destruction of wildlife habitat, and a lot of waste being dumped in the sea are being held near to the coast because of these barricades and barriers to catch tidal power. And then we have geothermal, the energy, the heat deep inside your earth crust due to the pressure of gravity. And there are lots of pollution from sulfur dioxide being trapped deep underground, and when you release the energy, all these pollutants will be released to the air. And groundwater pollutions by chemicals, including heavy metals, because when you want to get heat from this, you know, they pump some chemical so that the pipings that release the hot water will not be corroded, or they want to have corrosion resistant metals. So this will affect groundwater in terms of pollutions of heavy metals. And then also when you disturb the hydrology of the crust of the earth, there tend to be minor earthquake. We call this seismic effect. Later on, I will share you videos of all this effect on the environment. Then solar energy. We use photovoltaic or solar thermal. Solar energy is nice in a way that you don't produce carbon dioxide producing electricity from energy from the sun. But however, you need large areas to catch the sun energy. So then you are again competing with other needs of the land use, either for housing or agriculture. Okay, and even then, the way we produce photovoltaic cells involve some sort of pollutions and toxic material in manufacturing. Okay? And some people don't also like the visual intrusion of these flat solar panels. So you see that all these energy that and forms of energy that we look at, there will be some impact to the environment, to the ecology. That there is no really free and 100% problem-free form of energy generation. So you can conclude that, you know, the best way to reduce impact to the environment from our energy need is to reduce our own demand on energy. Okay, this is the actual chemical impacts of energy by pollutants. Okay, there are a lot of pollutants that they classify it as insult in this diagram. Lead emissions to atmosphere. This comes from fossil fuel burning, including you put lead in your in our petroleum to avoid knocking in our engines. But all this will release a lot of pollutants to environment. Okay, and when we harvest or when we extract petroleum or fossil fuel from the ocean, there tends to be some damage or some mishaps in handling and in extraction. So this industry itself will contribute to some form of pollution to the ocean. And then we have cadmium, sulfur, methane, nitrogen, all these from human activities. So not all of these due to energy extraction, but eventually it comes to these few chemicals or few substances that results in the degradation of our environment. Mercury, dinitrogen oxide, non-methane hydrocarbon, carbon dioxide, all these are examples of chemicals that will deteriorate our environment if we are not careful about it. Atmospheric pollution from sulfur dioxide. When we burn petroleum or diesel, we have this substance in our fuel. So the main culprit is coal-fired power station. So the effect of sulfur dioxide when it mixed with the rain can create sulfuric acid in air. Sometimes you have haze, jerebu, and if it mixed with rain, it can produce acid rain. Nitrous oxide, main source internal combustion engines. These are in our vehicles. When we burn the fuel in the air, it will create nitric acid, and if it mixes with the rain, it will also create acid rain. Okay, it's similar to sulfur dioxide, but these are closer to people, so immediate effect on respiratory. All these are within our activities that we have normally in cities, a lot of cars. Carbon monoxide is produced whenever you have incomplete combustion of carbon fuel. Even when we cook, there tend to be some percentage of carbon monoxide. Even when we start our car, there are a certain amount of carbon monoxide being released, but normally they are in small quantities, not poisonous. The main source is internal combustion engine, our cars. So this is why sometimes you heard of incidents where people who slept in their cars with engine running and they died because of carbon monoxide poisoning. So we need to be aware of this.